Hi, this is Hector Garcia. This video is an excerpt from a complete 3-day video course, self-paced, that you can get at www.quickbooksacademy.com. Once you go into quickbooksacademy.com, you click on Enroll Now, register with your contact information, then click on Learn QuickBooks Desktop in 3 days, and you can purchase the course from there. However, this video that I'm putting is going to be Lesson 1, Part 1 of that complete course, which is the only one I'm making available to the public, of course, as a teaser, because I would love to sell you my entire course. But you're going to exactly get a preview for what that is like. And this session is crucial because when you set up QuickBooks for the first time, that initial setup needs to be done correctly in order to give you a pleasant QuickBooks experience. So enjoy this Lesson 1, Create New Company File. And at least hit like and subscribe to the channel as I post many QuickBooks videos. And if you love this excerpt, purchase the course so you can learn QuickBooks from A through Z. All right, let's get started with QuickBooks. So right now I have my QuickBooks Desktop open. This will be on a Windows machine. I'm working on QuickBooks Enterprise Edition. However, this training will work with QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Premier, QuickBooks Accountant, QuickBooks Enterprise, any version of QuickBooks that gets installed into a Windows machine, it would work in here. So when you first open QuickBooks, you're going to see no company open. That basically says that QuickBooks is open, but no database or company file. It's open. You're going to see multiple company files here if you happen to be managing multiple companies through QuickBooks. It may also look completely blank if you're opening QuickBooks for the first time. So we're going to create a new company. To create a new company, we're going to click here where it says Create New Company, and we'll just go ahead and click on that. Then it's going to give us a couple of choices. The big blue button says Express Start. And if you press that, I will show you that real quick. If you press that, it's going to ask you a few questions: company name, industry, business type, and basically let you move forward. However, if you're starting QuickBooks for the very first time, I recommend that you actually use the Detail Start. The reason for that is because the Detail Start or the Advanced Setup is going to ask you a set of multiple questions. And these questions are going to guide you step by step on how you should set up QuickBooks to match your particular business, your particular industry. So let's go ahead and set up a company name here. So we're going to call this Miami Computers. So we're going to go ahead and set up like a computer company, and we'll put a generic address here. And the idea behind just putting something here, I know this is just kind of a basic training, is so we can actually see that address when we create invoices. We should be able to see an address there, so make it look as real as possible. Now you can skip tax ID or skip phone number, email, website. You don't need that, but you could go ahead and put it if you're setting up a real company. Then the next question is what industry? Now, this is not extremely important. If you get this wrong, it's not such a big deal. However, QuickBooks is going to customize your chart of accounts and the type of transactions that you work with based on your industry. Now we're working with a company called Miami Computers. This is the sample company we're setting up for this training. And we're going to find an industry that matches this one the best. So for example, there's this industry here called information technology. That makes sense. It's a computer company, so we're going to go ahead and pick that. Now, one important tip is if you can't find your industry here, because it is a pretty short list, just scroll all the way down and pick one of the generic ones. There's a general product-based, there's a general service-based. You can pick either one. You'll be fine with that. For our particular example, we're going to go ahead and pick information technology. Again, if you can't find your industry, pick one of the general ones. The next question is, how is your company organized? This is kind of a tax question. So how does your company file tax returns? And you're going to go ahead and pick whether it's a sole proprietorship, a partnership, LLC, corporation, etc. If you don't know this, you should ask your accountant. If your accountant doesn't know this, you should change accountants or ask a lawyer or whoever helped you set up the business. So I'm going to go ahead and pick S corporation, which is tends to be one of the most typical ones here for a small company. So I'm going to pick S corporation and click next. Then it's asking me for fiscal year. So if you're a regular calendar year company where you start January and December and you file your corporate tax returns on March 15, like all other corporations, or most corporations rather, you're going to leave January there. But if you happen to close your year, let's say June 30th, if that's when you actually close your year, then you're going to pick my fiscal year starts July. Okay, that's what you would pick. But most companies are going to be January to December, so we're going to pick the start month. So we'll click January and then click next. Then I'll ask you to create an administrative password. It's good for you to have a password in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put a password in there. And if you are setting up the company for the first time, hopefully you are the admin. If not, we're going to have to figure out who the admin is and then create a separate user for yourself. Next question is asking you, where in the computer would you like to save this? Now, if you're working in a multi-user environment where we have a server, multiple computers, that sort of thing, maybe you want to get your IT person involved, just because if you save it in the wrong place, it may not work properly in a multi-user network server environment. And also, if you're not in that environment, but this is set up in maybe your own laptop, don't put it in the desktop, because typically in the desktop, you'll be sort of inclined to put it in the trash can or something like that. So put it in a folder where it just makes sense to put it. I'm going to go ahead and put it in, let's say, my documents folder, and I'll put it under Intuit, and I'll put it right there and hit save. Again, you should probably get your IT person involved if you need to really decide what the right place to put this in. When it's finished saving, it's going to say, all right, we're going to go ahead and customize QuickBooks to fit your needs. And it's going to ask you a whole series of questions about what type of company you have and the type of transactions you'll be working with. So I'm going to go ahead and click on next. First question is, what do you sell? Products, services, or both? So if you do sell products, inventory, parts, actual things that you're selling and exchanging for money, you want to pick products. If you do mostly services done by your employees, or services of renting equipment or renting your facilities, labor, that sort of thing, we're going to pick services. And if you do both, just go ahead and pick both. And we'll click next. Then it's asking, do you charge sales tax? Again, if you sell products, you probably charge sales tax. You may want to ask an accountant, see if the type of products you're selling are taxable, or the clients you're selling to, you need to charge sales tax. So you may want to ask your accountant. I'm going to pick yes there and then hit next. Then it says, do you create estimates? So if you want to give somebody a quote, a proposal, basically like a pre-invoice, very organized with a total, then you want to pick yes there for estimates, and we'll hit next. Then it says, do you track customer orders? Now, for our sort of first couple of videos, we're not going to be doing sales orders. So I'm going to go ahead and click no. However, if you are working with QuickBooks Premier, Accountant, or Enterprise, and you have inventory and you take orders for things you don't have in stock yet, and you want to take that order and then sort of remind you and have a mechanism to go order the product through your vendor, that's what a sales order will be. And then in that case, you would hit yes. But for the first couple of videos I'm going to have here, the first couple of lessons, we're not going to do sales orders. So I'm going to pick no. I'll hit next. Then it says, do you use billing statements? Basically, do you want to give a client a statement, monthly, quarterly, that shows all the payments, all the invoices? It's like an invoice of invoices. Okay, so it doesn't contain details of the products and services you're selling. It contains all your invoices and all your payments. So if you want that, you would hit yes and then hit next. Do you use progress invoicing? Now, I'm going to hit no, because on this example company called Miami Computers, we're not going to do a project-based billing or milestone-based billing. However, if you are in the construction industry, if you sell projects that are sort of long-term, if your contract says, the whole thing's $100,000, and if you meet condition A, B, and C, you can bill your first 25%. And then if you meet condition C, D, and F, then you can bill another 30%. That sort of billing is called progress invoicing. So if you need that, you would hit yes there. But for the exercises we're going to do, we're going to hit no, and then we'll hit next. Then it says, do you manage the bills you owe? In other words, do you want to track accounts payable? Do you want to put vendor bills that you want to pay later? Set them in QuickBooks Now, recognize the expense now, pay them later, track how much money you owe in the future. That would be a bill. So I'm going to hit yes because I like that feature very much. We'll hit next. Then it says, do you track inventory? Again, if you purchase product, you stock it, you put it in the warehouse, you maintain it, you make sure that it doesn't break, you make sure you don't lose it, you count it, you adjust inventory if the counts are missing, then you do track inventory. If everything you buy, you resell, but you never stock in your warehouse, it's all basically order on demand. If it's sort of small materials that you don't account for, you do charge the client for them more or less, but not item by item, just sort of in a lump sum, then possibly you don't track inventory. For our example, this company called Miami Computers, we are going to use inventory, so we're going to hit next. Then we'll hit yes, and then we'll click next. Then it says, do you track time? So that's only if I'm going to have timesheets, and those timesheets are going to be used to understand how much our employees' time is worth in each project. Or maybe I want to generate a paycheck with it. Or maybe I just want to bill my client the hours that I spent on the project. So if any of those apply, you're going to hit yes. For our couple of examples on this first videos, we're not going to track time. We're going to have a whole video on payroll, and we'll include all the time elements in there. So for this example, we're going to hit no, and then I'll hit next. Then it says, do you have employees? Again, we'll have an entire video series on payroll. But for this company called Miami Computers, we're going to go ahead and just have subcontractors. So we're going to hit yes on 1099 subcontractors, but we're not going to hit yes on W-2 employees. And then we'll hit next. Then it says, okay, we're going to set up your chart of accounts. But before we get there, I need to know what your start date is. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then after we settle the whole concept of start date, then it's going to suggest a couple of income and expense accounts. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And the question essentially is, do you want to start your accounting at the beginning of this fiscal year? Like, for example, let's say you're in the middle of July and you're setting up your QuickBooks file and you're trying to decide whether or not you should go all the way to the beginning of the year. That way, when you close out the year, you sort of have a clean year so you can file a tax return. And that's very, very common. But you don't have to. If you want to just start your accounting today, August 1st, 2016, and forget about January through July and not really worry too much about the history of the mid-year, then you can just pick whatever date you want. Keep in mind, whatever your start date is, you're probably going to have to bring all the beginning balances right as of that date. Beginning bank balances, beginning credit card balances, loans, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the chart of accounts. So I'm going to go ahead and pick beginning of the fiscal year because that's the most common, especially for companies that already been open before we started our QuickBooks file. All right, we're going to go ahead and click next. Then it's going to suggest accounts based on the categories based on the options and questions that it asks, and these are the categories. So we're going to see all the different options here. I can turn them on by hitting the checkbox. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on subcontractor expense. I'll turn on business license and permits. I'm going to leave charity contributions out. Let's say I'm never going to deal with that. Let's say equipment rental, we'll turn that one on. And then we'll scroll down. And then we see that insurance expense, it's already suggesting a couple of other insurances. And you see a little gap or a little sort of tab there under that. That means these are sub-accounts. So this is suggesting a major category called insurance expense, but then it's additionally suggesting other subcategories or sub-accounts. So I'm going to pick general liability and health insurance as the two sub-accounts. And you're going to see kind of how those look in the chart of accounts briefly on the next lesson. I'm going to keep scrolling down and let me turn on janitorial expense and miscellaneous expense. I'll leave that one out. I hate that account. I find it when somebody has the miscellaneous expense account there, that becomes basically the go-to account for everything. So I typically suggest my clients to leave that one out. I'll turn on postage and delivery. That one's good. Scroll down. Repairs and maintenance. That's pretty good. We'll turn that one on.
Property taxes, let's say they don't have any buildings, so we'll leave that out of the options there. And you see a bunch of options there. Ask my accountant, really good. Leave that one on. That way, if you're an accountant and you're setting this up for a client, then the client knows to put everything they don't know there. And if you're an end user, and hopefully you have an accountant, and the things you don't know, put them there. That way, once a month or once a quarter, however often you meet with your accountant, you can review the transactions that went in that category. Okay, so once we're done reviewing these, we can hit next. And then it says, congratulations. You can click on go to setup. And the first screen you're going to see is this QuickBooks setup screen. Now, this screen only shows up when you first turn QuickBooks on and create a new file. So because I'm never going to get this screen back, I'm just going to hit close, and we'll create customers, products, and bank accounts, but we'll do them in their own screens where they're supposed to be going. So I'll click on the little X there, or click start working. Now, the first thing you'll see is the home screen. Okay, you're going to see the home screen there with a whole bunch of icons. We'll get to that in a second. And these icons have arrows going all over the place. And what really is happening here is QuickBooks is trying to, with each icon, represent a transaction. And each transaction is sort of an accounting event. And it's kind of walking you through the typical accounting events that you have. And we'll discuss those later on. Now, the other piece of big information you see, other than the icons there, is this big blue bar in the left. Now, this bar can be collapsed by clicking on that little arrow, and then you don't get that anymore. However, what's in here are shortcuts, view balances. I mean, there's a couple of interesting things here. If you don't like this left navigation bar that you can collapse and open, you can just click on the view menu, and you can just turn it off by clicking on left navigation bar. Or you can click on top navigation bar and see that same bar in the top, but it's going to be static, so you can't close it and open it. Now, a lot of people like to have these icons there just because they're pretty good shortcuts. However, everything you see on these icons can be also accessed through the menu. So if you don't want any of them at all, just click on hide icon bar, and then you won't see a top bar or a left icon bar. I like having at least one, either a top bar or a left icon bar. But if you are going to have the left icon bar, just have it collapsed and in the shortcuts, just in case I want to click my shortcuts and have access to the shortcuts there. Now, the other obvious sort of thing here is this little tab here called Insights. When you click on Insights, it's going to show you sort of a graphical interface, which is sort of a dashboard of my sales, my expenses, and they're good to have. Although there's a whole reports menu and a whole dashboard menu, it's right there as a tab in the homepage. So just know that that's right there. And once we have more transactions, those are going to be pretty obvious there. The other thing is, if you've been using QuickBooks on older versions, typically you're used to having the top icon bar like this, and then having this thing called the open window list. So I'm going to kind of show you what that is. Some people actually prefer that. So basically, if you have multiple windows open, let's say I have a bill open, and I also have, and let me just go ahead and click on a purchase order. Let's say I also have a purchase order open, and also have an estimate open, and then also have an invoice open. So what ends up happening is you have all these windows, and they're kind of a mess because they're sort of behind each other, on top of each other. See that? That will make it very difficult to navigate. So this open window list here on the left, what it makes it really easy, because you can just quickly go to the window you want. So you can click enter bill, and then under this view, you can just click on the maximize button and just have it maximized. And then you don't have to worry about making it smaller or bigger, just because you're going to have the open window list here. So that's a really important navigation piece. Right before we get started with QuickBooks, it's important to know that that's there. Now, if you like the left icon bar, I'm going to click here, left icon bar, and you click on this little tiny icon here. Where is it? This one, open windows. It's going to be a little bit similar than that left navigation bar. If I expand it, you're going to see it here is a lot bigger. For some people, that's better because it's easier to read, but I think it takes a lot more real estate. But what's nice is that even while it's collapsed, and you see that big label that says open windows, I can click that and briefly open it and switch. See that? I can quickly switch across different windows. So I like that very much. Now, it's really important to know that the escape key in QuickBooks will close a window. So I don't have to go all the way to this little X here to close, although that's a way to close. So I'm going to click on that X that closes the window. Be careful not to hit the big X or the X all the way in the top. That will close QuickBooks altogether. Anyway, so I'm going to keep pressing escape, and then just keep closing the windows and showing the window that's right behind it. However, if you just want to close every single window all in one shot, just click on window, close all, and that will get rid of it and just get you into a completely gray and blank screen, which I like a lot. I like that very much. I'm going to go ahead and expand that navigation bar again. So these are sort of the most basic navigation tips of QuickBooks. It's important to kind of get accustomed to that before actually starting to create transactions. A couple other things, keyboard shortcuts. So if you click on any of these menus here, so I click on the edit menu, for example, you're going to see a button there called use register. So by seeing use register there, you see Control R next to it, or for example, find Control F next to it. So it's giving you sort of a hint of that you can use a keyboard shortcut. If I go to the list menu, for example, you see the chart of accounts has a Control A shortcut, but the item list does not. So there isn't a Control I or something that can get you to the item list. However, that I mentioned Control I actually gets you into an invoice. Now, don't despair if there's a transaction there that you would love to have a keyboard shortcut to, that you don't actually see the control letter next to it. You actually can access almost every, not every, but almost every function in QuickBooks using the Alt key. So for example, if I wanted to get to the item list, which has no keyboard shortcut with the control menu, I can actually follow. If you see under L, the L is highlighted or it's underlined, and then you see the I is underlined. Basically, that says that if I hit the Alt key and then I hit L first, that's going to open the list menu. And then if I hit I, it's going to open the item list. Okay, so that's kind of an interesting shortcut to know. Alt LI will open the item list. Just like, for example, if I wanted to open my vendor center, which doesn't have a control letter shortcut, customer center does. Control J gets me to the customer center, but the vendor center does not have one. But if I hit O and then V, so Alt OV opens up the vendor center. So it's another really kind of interesting shortcut to know. Hit escape, close all windows. All right, that's the first lesson, setting up a new QuickBooks file and basic navigation.
And I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, there's a lot of free content in YouTube. In my channel, there's hundreds and hundreds of video in QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop, tons of content. So I really strongly suggest that you exhaust all the free options that are out there before purchasing a course. If you go to youtube.com and you simply type QuickBooks training or QuickBooks tutorial, you're going to see hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of videos. So I absolutely recommend to exhaust all the free videos that are out there. However, I did create a course because one of the criticisms that most people have towards YouTube videos is that they're disorganized. They don't follow a specific pace, a specific system. So the videos that I created, and I'm showing you a preview of what the virtual course looks like, takes everything step by step. So it will start with lesson 1, creating a new company file, which is what you just saw. Then it goes into chart of accounts, working with items, setting up customers and vendors, customer transactions, that would be invoices, vendor transactions, that would be purchase orders and vendors. That one's kind of long, see 50 minutes because there's a lot of moving parts with expenditures, working with banks and financial reports. I also have a couple of quizzes, knowledge checks, which are useful for people that are preparing for maybe taking a certified QuickBooks user exam, or maybe they're looking for, they're going to interview at a job and they're going to give them a test. This is actually really good test prep. Day 2, it actually contains a special series called Becoming a QuickBooks Certified User, which is the only, that I know of, the only video series in the entire internet that is focused around helping someone pass the QuickBooks Certified User exam. And that goes through setup, utilities, list management, items, sales, purchases, payroll, reports. So it's similar than my first basics course, but it goes a little bit deeper. It's a little bit more technical. It also has a couple of practice questions, practice quizzes to help you prepare for that exam. For example, if I click on practice questions, there's the question, and then it takes you to 20 questions. And hopefully if you pass, that's a good indication that you're in the right track to taking a QuickBooks Certified User exam. However, the vast majority of people that purchase my course are not necessarily looking to pass an exam. They just want to learn QuickBooks on their own. I also uploaded a couple of videos that are available through this book. So if you actually are enrolled in a college and you buy this book, which is called Computerized Accounting for QuickBooks 2018, I was actually hired to do the student materials for this book. So all the videos that complement this book, I uploaded into my private portal as well. So if you actually buy this book, which is not cheap, it's about $180, $200 because it's a college book, you're going to get access to all the videos, the same videos that I posted in my portal. I edit them a little bit so they're not exactly the same, and you will get the exercises. So that's something I recommend you get on your own. You don't have to, but it's actually a pretty good reference guide. It's an expensive book, but again, it's really high quality, and it has exercise files, which is what I find to be the most valuable. Now, none of the content of this book, specific book, or the exercise files are included in my videos. And my videos is just going to be the videos that I recorded. This is just a resource that I recommend, and I have links to purchasing that inside of the course itself. Now, you'll have access to all those videos, and then I also posted some bonus materials, and I'm consistently updating this course. I added my Enterprise Expert series, which is mostly for QuickBooks Enterprise users. I have about 15 videos there that are all QuickBooks Enterprise type features. I have some advanced reporting, and I'm still adding some bonus materials. Again, if you want to check that out, go to www.quickbooksacademy.com. Some of the videos are available for your preview for free. And again, if you like the stuff that I create in YouTube and you want to learn QuickBooks Desktop, the best way to pay me a compliment is to purchase my course. Yes, I'm selling it to you. Yes, I would love for you to buy it. This is why I do what I do. I hope you learn QuickBooks and enjoy the YouTube channel. Thank you.